Hey everybody, this is your daily dose of all things royal. Welcome back, my gorgeous good-looking friends. In today's video, I want to talk about another YouTube channel called The Behavior Panel and a recent video that they did on the Markle interview. Many of you are familiar with these guys and have seen their work on their channel. These men are some of the best trained experts in the world analyzing human behavior and body language. They have done a few videos about Meghan and Harry, and I have learned quite a lot in noticing certain behavior patterns that Meghan and Harry exude. Recently, they analyzed the Markle interview. While there were some great observations made, and it is a lengthy and detailed video, there were some gaps I would like to address and fill in. And I recognize that this is the first video that they have done on the Markles, and I think that they should explore them further. I don't think these guys realize that this interview fell flat for so many people. The content of what they were discussing in the interview, majority of it wasn't new to a lot of us. In fact, the photos and videos, for the most part, had already been seen.
Yeah, I'm going to start off by saying, look, we have no idea what happened behind the scenes. We're not trying to project and say we know what happened between him and her. Not our business. What we're trying to do is read what we see, tell you what we see, and we rarely conjecture about what happened in the past. There's apparently baggage of some kind.
So one of the panelists, Greg Hartley, is very clear about how they have approached this video. These four experts have done a few videos now about Meghan Markle, so I would have to think naturally in their minds they have been building profiles to understand the behaviors they are seeing, as well as understanding the relationship dynamics and the interpersonal effectiveness of the Markles in relation with Meghan Markle. I think to some degree, you have to have a bit of background and context. Ultimately, it's understanding the why of what they do and be able to accurately explain how this train crash that we have been watching over the last 5 years happened in the first place. You can't fix this situation for the better without this important understanding of the people themselves. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. The panel begins to talk about Samantha's personality profiling skills.
Yeah, so nice profile. The sister here is also a profiler, and so I'm going to give her profile of of her sister or stepsister.
All right, so let's make this small little correction. Samantha is not a stepsister; she is a half sister, meaning that her biological father is Thomas Markle, which Meghan Markle's biological father is Thomas Markle, which would make them half sisters. Samantha and Meghan would be considered stepsister if neither of them shared a parent biologically.
So Samantha's profile of her sister, Meghan. So, it starts feeling like it might be something about a personality profile, but it really does become a personality disorder profile that she moves into. So, yeah, for me, it's not simply a personality profile. She is definitely drawing a picture here of a very distinct personality disorder. I'll let you decide what you think it might be. I mean, Chase has already, mentioned it, really. Now, the interesting thing is she's going to ramp up that idea later on. She's going to give another profile, which is way beyond what you just saw there. So what I want to think about is why didn't she give that later personality profile or personality disorder profile earlier on? How come it's ramping up, and therefore how accurate might it be? I mean, look, it's very similar to what Chase is talking about there. So I'm not saying her personality, her profiling here is inaccurate. It's actually probably quite good.
I think the reason why this ramped up was not because of Samantha's doing in how she told the story. It all comes down to the editing and what the narrative Australia Spotlight wanted to push out in framing this position for the Markles. Now, in the second question that was posed by Mark was assessing how accurate Samantha was in this profile of her sister. Well, if he did have a moment to look into Samantha's background, especially her education, he would then have seen the reason why she was so accurate is because she is trained and has a degree in psychology, as well as a master's in mental health. So you have to understand that she has the education around it and also the experience to do this type of profile. Her assessment should have some weight to it because she does have credentials to do it. From my observation in Samantha's interviews, she is very smart and highly intuitive.
What I'm going to suggest is that she takes a good run at it after this and ramps it up a little bit further.
Yeah, Mark, I actually have in my notes, maybe she's a panelist. We don't know.
Right. Yeah,
She's got some great language.
Yeah,
hey, if you're out there and you're listening, you probably won't like me when we're done with this, but we always welcome interviews.
I think this is a great idea. I would love to see them talk to Samantha about the behavior of her sister and the dynamics that she had growing up in this blended family, and Samantha's brief relationship that she had with Doria. I would be interested in hearing Samantha do a personality profile on Doria.
So I will say this. I said it in the beginning. If a fish swims in oil, a fish will taste like oil. Behaviors come from somewhere. So if a person's behaving that way, narcissism, we all know, comes from feeling inferior. How a person becomes inferior, we don't know. If we knew the magic formula that makes a narcissist, we could interrupt that. We don't. We don't know where those things come from.
Malignant narcissists are some of the most dangerous and toxic people in the world, especially if they have money, power, and influence. It is important more people be exposed to this behavior to prevent supporting and enabling a person towards gaining more power and influence. In the case of Meghan Markle, she is not someone that I want influencing and grooming our youth, especially within the US government, should she run for an office and succeeds. We need to know exactly what we're dealing with, not the false narrative that she wants to sell the public on. So it's important to me that the behavior panel gets it right and understanding the root cause of why Meghan does what she does and how she can have the conscience to do what she does, especially to her own family. And in order to do that, you have to understand where Meghan came from and how she grew up. Meghan didn't just wake up one day and say, I'm going to be a malignant narcissist. We really need to know how she inherited it and if there is family trauma behind it, how it shaped her. And that way we could figure out how to end this cycle because it's going to continue. Most definitely, it will get passed on to the alleged children she has. This is the so-called genetic pain that Harry allegedly is trying to prevent from being passed down.
Fish taste like what they swim in. And by that, I mean, if you nurture children a certain way, they're going to also behave that certain way. And a lot of times, whether it's biology or nurture, people will pick up the same traits.
So I'm going to break this video up into a couple of sections. This first section, I want us to look at Thomas Markle a little closer because I don't think that the behavior panel had a good baseline understanding. And I would like to just fill in some gaps where I felt could help or change the perspective if they decide to do future videos. We all know that the Markles are not done and neither are Meghan and Harry. So, it's just good to process information and just continue to keep learning. The behavior panel did express some uncertainty in some of the analysis that they did around Thomas Markle because of the stroke factor.
And then the father has, in recent months or recent years, had a stroke. I think it's the past 4 years. So you see that he is now impaired as well. So baseline, we talk about baseline all the time. Baseline is absolutely imperative. Stroke is unpredictable what it will do because it depends on the part of the brain it impacts. So if it impacted the part that controls muscles in his face, he's going to have trouble. If it impacts the part that controls a side, he's going to have trouble. But there's all kinds of things that can happen.
So if you're not aware or forgot, Thomas Markle had this stroke almost 1 year ago. So enough time has passed for people to forget how Thomas Markle spoke, how he looked, how he acted. If you were following this last year when it happened, you and many others, like myself, saw that this was littered in speculation on the severity as well as the actual damage that Thomas Markle had suffered. Also, the timing of it was quite suspicious. Let me preface and say that I do believe Thomas had a health emergency. I had trouble believing the severity and the narratives that the Markles were pushing out last year. A lot of the story didn't add up, and this recent interview, I have become even more skeptical. So, one of the panelists, Chase Hughes, the really cute one in the left-hand corner who just got married, talks about brain function and how motor skills are affected when somebody has a stroke. Listen to what he says.
And when Tom raises his right hand with this number 4 here, he looks at his fingers, and I think this is to check that it's the right number being held up. Now, this is very common. I've taken final exams on this kind of stuff. This is called dysarthria. This is different little things that happen with uncoordination or lack of coordination. And there's, with any stroke, you're going to have some kind of impaired body language there. There's sometimes difficulty with gestures, eye contact, often due to some kind of physical or cognitive limits. And his stroke likely took place maybe in that area. And when somebody has a stroke that affects the somatosensory areas and motor cortex, this is most likely to be seen, this kind of behavior here. And
now that all makes total sense, but you have to recognize what the baseline was before the stroke, which I don't believe these gentlemen have a good grasp of. Prior to the stroke, in videos that had been featured on Thomas Markle's YouTube channel, as well as past interviews, the trembles, the slurred speech, the mumbling, all were there. In addition to the twist in his mouth, that also was there. Thomas Markle was reported to have a stroke on May 24th, 2022. This is a video from 2021. Take notice of his mouth, take notice of his speech, and the shaking.
I don't know how you can make a judgment until you've spoken to those people and me.
When Thomas Markle had this stroke, he was caught up with this man, Carl Larson. Now, this is why this was all so shady. So Carl Larson does this YouTube channel with Thomas Markle, who, if those that don't remember who Carl Larson was, this whole issue with the staged photos, well, in the very beginning, the really negative and bad photos that Thomas Markle was trying to improve on were taken by this guy, Carl Larson, who worked for Coleman Rayner. Now, Coleman Rayner is the agency that went ahead and called Samantha Markle to say, hey, can you convince your dad to do these photos because it will make him look better? Hence, this whole plan was concocted, and then, as we know, that the photos were staged and thus kicked off this whole feud between Meghan and her father. And on this channel, the discussions were around the royals and Thomas Markle's feeling around Prince Harry. And Thomas Markle was prepared by having a script written out for him, so he would just literally read off of the sheet. But what was interesting was that Thomas Markle, had been trying to see his daughter, and they started to toy with the idea about going to the Jubilee. And once GB News got wind of it, they ended up inviting Thomas to go to the Jubilee. And whatever plan that they had put together, I'm not really sure where this was going. However, on May 23rd, Meghan's mole tweeted out stating that she stumbled upon Carl Larson's name on photos that were taken for Meghan Markle for this staged polo photo victory winner circle opportunity. And when you look at the photo, you can see how close Carl Larson was to getting these photos, which means that he had to have been hired by Meghan. And this wasn't the only instance where he was taking photos of these polo events. Naturally, the community was scratching their heads saying, well, is Thomas Markle talking to his daughter? Because this makes absolutely no sense. Also, Carl Larson had worked for Coleman Rayner, but was fired right before the royal wedding. It was around April 2018 when he was fired from there. And how I know this is that Carl Larson had filed a lawsuit against Coleman Rayner in 2019 for this wrongful termination. Now, right before Meghan Mole's discovery, Thomas and Carl put out a video, and in this video, they talk about suing Coleman Rayner. This is dated May 21st, 3 days before the alleged stroke.
One more important thing. I still am filing a lawsuit against Coleman Rayner for taking those photographs of me and taking advantage of me.
At this point, I don't think anybody prior to this video knew that Carl Larson had attempted to sue Coleman Rayner. As you watch Carl Larson's face, he's looking down. It's almost like you could tell that he has thoughts of his own about Coleman Rayner. At the same time, he's also taking photos of Meghan at these polo events. Keep in mind that this video was posted on May 21st. On May 23rd is when Meghan's mole discovered Carl Larson's name at the bottom of the pictures, along with the agency backgrid that Meghan has on speed dial and an account set up in order to send photos through, approved ones. Once the public quickly got wind of this after the discovery, on May 24th, TMZ is called to report Thomas Markle had a possible stroke. And who called it in? Guess who? Backgrid. No one knows who took this video. Some are saying that it was Carl Larson who took this video. Some are saying that it was Tom Jr. that took this video. But the bottom line is that Thomas Markle Sr. had approved this video. And I don't know about you, but if I was having a massive stroke, the last thing that I'd be thinking about is calling the paparazzi to come videotape me at my worst. That's just me. And many had questioned it at the time. But the response was they wanted to do that because he didn't think anybody would believe him. Well, there's other ways of proving that you were in the hospital, like the hospital record. You don't have to show the full detail, but that's evidence enough. But to go ahead and think that you needed to get this on camera and then immediately send it off to TMZ, something doesn't smell right. And the part that was affected for Thomas Markle just so happened to be his speech. So the day that he was getting asked questions about Carl Larson now no longer could be answered because Thomas Markle couldn't speak. At the time, the reporting was that this was a severe, life-threatening stroke, and both Thomas Markle Jr. and Samantha went to the media immediately to update the public on Thomas Markle's condition, as well as ask the public to leave the family alone. Well, we got the impression that this was a severe, debilitating stroke. What was interesting to me was in the recent Markle interview, the commentator said that it has been years since they all had gotten together. Now, back when Thomas Markle had this severe stroke and needed support from his family and care, there was talk about Samantha flying to California from Florida to be with her father. Now, I understand that she has a disability and travel is difficult, but here's the thing, it's not impossible. We know that she has traveled long distances, as she had shown that she flew over to London to try and go see her sister. So we know that it's possible. If this stroke was so severe and he was in a critical condition, you would want to think that the children would rush to his bedside to make sure that they were there if anything should have happened. That's just my thought process. So, looking at Meghan, look, she was closer and she should have done the right thing or at least call him, bare minimum. But Samantha not going then makes me question, well, how serious and severe was this? And was this possibly a way to deflect having to deal with the whole Carl Larson situation? And at the same time, use it to manipulate Meghan into succumbing to see him. I believe Thomas will do just about anything to see his daughter again, which includes playing up to the camera, playing up to the narrative of having this really serious stroke and his health is fading really fast and he doesn't have much time. Let's remember that Thomas Markle is Hollywood. He said it in multiple interviews. He has always wanted to be in showbiz. Remember, Thomas's skill was in lighting, and it was all about creating optics. So being in an industry that does tell stories and tries to convince others of what they're seeing is real, I'm sure he has picked up some tips of the trade along the way. He may not be an actor, but to some degree, that I believe and what I see in the most recent interview is that he's acting. And it is possible, in my opinion, that he is over slurring his speech. In Thomas's baseline before him, you have seen the same twist of the mouth and similar slurred speech. Everyone is assuming he is using a cane as a result of having a stroke, but it could also be that Thomas has had a bad knee for many years and it just got worse. I mean, he mentioned this in the interview in 2020.
There's a hill, and he wants me to run up that hill. I have a bad knee. I said I can't be running up a hill. So I'm sort of limping up the hill, holding two weights.
Could it be possible that Thomas gained a little more weight and the pressure was making it worse? Maybe. Now, I don't recall that the family ever did disclose the medical condition, or at least discuss the various parts of the brain that was affected and how he had been impacted from this stroke. All we knew was that he lost his speech and had some motor issues. I think it was mentioned at one point that he was having difficulty eating, but that came from Samantha and Tom Jr. anything about their father. And for a year, we really didn't see much about Thomas Markle's progress, whether it be in any type of rehabilitation, in helping with his speech or motor skills. Like, really, we saw nothing. Another thing that I want to point out is many stroke victims afterwards lose a considerable amount of weight. In addition, looking at Thomas Markle, he looks like he has gained weight, not something that is very healthy at this time for this man. If he did have a stroke, gaining additional weight definitely is putting him at risk for more strokes. So let's question this. Did he really have this massive stroke that they are claiming, considering we hadn't seen him now for a full year? I have my doubts and I am skeptical. So now let's go back to the behavior panel on one critical thing that I found the most important of this video, and it was with what Greg had said.
Fish taste like what they swim in. And by that, I mean, if you nurture children a certain way, they're going to also behave that certain way.
Now, I don't know if this interview is still available to be watched, but I would love for the behavior panel to do an analysis on this one to get a better picture in what we're seeing now. My observation from all the interviews that the Markles have done and listening to the behavior panel and understanding that this behavior that we're seeing with Meghan definitely was learned from somewhere. I think Meghan has experienced the trauma of abandonment from her mother for not being there for a decade. And then the relationship between Meghan and her father, to me, was unhealthy. Let me preface and say I'm not insinuating that Thomas Markle in any way interfered with Meghan as a child physically. I don't think that. However, I do think Thomas Markle was obsessed with his daughter and saw her more as a partner and significant other than actually a parent and child relationship. I mentioned in my review that Thomas Markle appears and has been acting like a dumped boyfriend who just can't get over it and continues to pine and will do things to try and get the attention of Meghan. Many of you didn't agree, but let me show you how I came to that conclusion by going back and looking at some of the things that Thomas has said from this interview that was filmed in 2019, but then released in 2020. One of the mysteries in Meghan's childhood is the explanation of where did her mother go for a gap period between 6 and 10 years. We can pinpoint that Meghan most likely learned her style of rewriting history from her father, because there have been several instances, even admitted in this documentary, that he had lied. He tells the story initially of how Meghan ended up living with him.
Why was it you think she wanted to come and live with you?
I'm not certain. I think because I probably had a little more time for her. She had been with me for most weekends and during the week. So I said, do you want to come live with me? She said, yes. I said, let's go look for a house. Let's go find a place. So together we went and found a place.
Let's all remember that in Tom Bower's book, Revenge, the author, Tom Bower, went and spent a few days with Thomas Markle to get his side of the story. In the book, he writes, daily for nearly 10 years, he dropped Meghan off at school and, at the end of the afternoon, would either collect her or send a limousine to bring her to the studio from the Pretties or another school friend while he finished work. You know, in reading this, to me, this doesn't sound like he had all this time for her. It sounded like he was really busy working, and he would send Meghan to stay with her friends until he was done working, or he would send a car to go get her and bring her back to the studio so she can wait until he finished work. So right here, there is a conflict. Both of these stories were told by Thomas Markle.
I said, do you want to come live with me? She said, yes. I said, let's go look for a house. Let's go find a place.
Honestly, I don't know why I find this so bizarre. Maybe because my parents did not value my opinion at such a young age, that they didn't consult or felt the need to consult me when they decided to pick a new home and move into it. Literally, they found a new home, and next thing that I knew was that my stuff was packed and we were moving into a new house, and I was around the same age as Meghan was. So, I just find it bizarre that this adult decision was being made with Meghan.
So together we went and found a place.
Right up here.
Yeah.
We lived on the top floor here. We'd go through that gate up the steps, and a living room, dining room, her bedroom, my bedroom, and separate bathrooms, and we could get far enough away from each other all the time,
Right.
which was really important, and it was perfect.
We got along very well. Meghan took care of me as much as I took care of her.
Okay, so here's something I want to point out. Meghan is a child. She is in the range of between 9 and 11, according to both these stories. Why would Meghan take care of her father? To me, I just find that weird. She's a child.
Meghan was my most important relationship and my pride and joy.
That doesn't seem like a normal thing to say, especially when you have two other children.
I wonder if those years on your own with Meghan, between 11 and 16, I mean, were they the happiest years of your life, do you think?
Yeah, you could say so. I think you could say so. Sharing the years with someone, sharing with Meghan would probably have been my happiest years.
Notice the words that he uses. Sharing the years with someone, not watching my daughter grow and become independent, right? Having pride that he has helped her get to a point where she can go out on her own. But saying sharing the years with someone, to me, indicates more of a significant other. I know that he loves her, but what happened to hanging out with people your own age and sharing time with friends? It does not appear to me that he did very much of that, especially when he talks about the vacations. So at one point in the documentary, they make a point to state that, Thomas Markle took photos of Meghan as well as took hours of video of her. And what I've noticed now, looking back in all of the interviews that Thomas Markle and the family have done, we're looking at the same pictures, the same video. And what I notice is that the video that they keep showing us over and over of the same vacation, the fishing, the horseback riding, have all been from one year, 1993. To me, I find that strange considering she was living with Thomas, and if he had been taking all these so-called photos and videos of her, why are we seeing still the same pictures? What's even weirder is when you look back at this video and you try to find photos of Samantha and Thomas Jr., there are none. And on top of it, the actual mantles have Meghan pictured there front and center. To me, I find this disturbing. In the 60 Minutes Australia interview that Thomas did in 2021, we see all the pictures and frames that we just recently saw in this recent documentary.
She was a homecoming queen for boys' college. And the baby pictures, see?
Thomas Markle's house.
Here, the signature knows this thing.
You'd never know that he and his daughter Meghan aren't on speaking terms.
We used to share everything. We used to share our good moments all the time. And I miss all that. And certainly the fact that she's had her first child is a very important thing.
When you put all of this together, it just sounds so obsessive and as well possessive.
She was the closest thing to me for years and years and years, and I miss her. I miss the way she was. I don't know who she is now. That's the problem.
As you can see here, the Spotlight documentary, they went ahead and edited and took the same photos but arranged it in different sequence. Same thing they did with the video. Why are we only seeing the same sequence of videos from 1993? In my opinion, Thomas Markle has not been forthcoming. This one documentary has so many contradictions to what we're seeing in present day, as well as...
She was living with me until she left for college. So, unless she was in her own apartment at that time, but I don't think she was.
No, because that was before college.
Yeah, well then she would live there.
These are my cats. This is Bella and Maria. No. No, okay, I'm getting ready to move, so my room is just a mess.
So what Thomas Markle says next, I don't really know. And I'm asking any fathers that are out there, if you had daughters that were going into the entertainment industry to become an actress, would you be comfortable in knowing that your daughter would probably have to take roles that were consistent with playing a stripper or a prostitute? Actresses in Hollywood walk a very thin line when it comes between going and doing entertainment and becoming mainstream or doing entertainment that is only for adults, if you know what I mean. Now, I know my father, when I was at that age, would have been very protective of me and probably would have locked me in my room till I was 40 if he knew that these were the type of roles that would be offered to me starting out in this industry. Also knowing, remember, Thomas Markle has been in the industry. He has seen some shit go down, no doubt. Listen to how casual Thomas's acceptance of what Meghan has to do to get to the top.
Eventually, she got a few jobs. You play the part of a prostitute. You play the part of a stripteaser. Most young girls, their first job is usually something like that.
Well, though Thomas may appear that he's not doing any of this for money and that was not the primary driver, I have to disagree with that. Now, there's nothing wrong with them getting compensated for, any interviews that they do or provide any type of content. I mean, why not? But I find that when it's the central focus and where it does come down to assessing value and worth, it does seem like Meghan's obsession with money and designer labels and showing off this status really does stem, and you can see little bits of it, from the family, especially since Thomas Markle seems to be money focused or driven.
And you're being paid for this, right?
Yes, and absolutely. And I'll do future things and be paid for them, I think. I don't care. I mean, at this point, they own me. The Royals own me. Harry owes me. Meghan owes me. What I've been through, I should be rewarded for. My daughter told me that when I reach my senior years, she'll take care of me. I'm in my senior years now. I'm 75 years old. So it's time to look after Daddy.
Now, this last part, to me, I find super cringe. In this one moment, it does appear that Thomas Markle does have this expectation that whatever Meghan does, he's going to go along with her. And I do believe that he is really eaten up over Meghan went off into the stratosphere and left him behind. Obviously, he keeps saying that, he wants to get to know his grandchildren and meet them and that he doesn't have that much time left. Well, why is he not spending time with his other grandchildren? Why is he wasting his time pining over someone who obviously has dumped him? Yeah, it's hard and it sucks, but looking back at this obsession that we're seeing in his home with photos of Meghan everywhere, and then the way that he talks about Meghan, it does not appear healthy.
His home is littered with photos of his beloved children.
That one. Well, that's her first wedding in Jamaica.
Each image is a heartbreaking reminder of happier times.
Look at this. You ask yourself, where are the other children that he has? Like, what about Samantha? What about Thomas Jr.? It's just odd to me seeing that on the mantle, front and center, is just him and Meghan. Nobody else, just the two of them in the center. This would be different if Meghan was truly an only child, but can you imagine the dynamics with Samantha and Tom Jr. and how they regard Meghan, especially when she is the apple of their father's eye and they pretty much are on the sidelines? There has to be some deeply rooted resentment. I mean, we know that the way that Meghan had treated Samantha definitely was not right, but I will bet that there has to be resentment towards Meghan. And I think we see that come out a bit in the recent interview, but also some that she probably doesn't talk about, because what we're seeing here is so blatant that Thomas Markle favored Meghan over his other two children. Yeah, we know that he loves them, but he doesn't love them equally. I would say Meghan is the way that she is because she has mommy and daddy issues. Thomas Markle has openly lied. He has admitted it, as well as we are now seeing contradictions. So I would really like if the behavior panel could look at this a bit differently. I do think that Thomas Markle is also a narcissist, just in the things that he has said and his behavior. In addition, the lying. He has lied just as easily as Meghan does.
A month after the wedding, I went on the Pierce show and talked about the wedding. And actually on the Pierce show, I lied. And they both said, take care of yourself. We're really worried about you, so.
Has it been
I said, they called me back. They were really concerned about me. And I said, go on your honeymoon. Don't worry about me. I'll be fine. Well, that was all a lie. They said, worry about the wedding. And and then please go on a honeymoon, because they've been tied into this for like months. So
It is my hope that the behavior panel does look at this particular part as a baseline for knowing what to look out for in how Thomas Markle lies. I bet that some of the areas that they did suspect that there might have been some lying going on in the most recent video could be sorted out if they had this baseline. So maybe they will check out this video. I hope they do, because I would like for them to revisit some portions of it. These guys have a top-notch skill set when they have all the information available to them to make their assessment. In my opinion, I think it was not understanding the baseline because they weren't familiar with Thomas Markle before his stroke. I think it would be worth for them to look at it again, because these guys are really good at what they do. And I don't know about you, but I'm so tired of being lied to by this family. Every one of them has told their truth. I mean, we saw Doria lie through her teeth on Netflix. Well, at least Thomas Markle has some type of conscience. I don't think Samantha, Tom Jr., or Thomas Markle are malicious people. But I do think that they justify how they tell their stories. I just want to get to the truth. We have been lied to on so many fronts by the media, by these stories changing. So I think it's justified to be skeptical about the most recent interview and its intention. I personally think that Samantha held back a lot. And I do agree with the behavior panel that this was for their dad. But I also would like the behavior panel to look at this through the view of Thomas Markle being the narcissist in the family. And when they talk about how behaviors are mirrored, you do see similar behaviors with Meghan. We all know her signature after everything. She's like, right? Well, Thomas Markle does that as well. So who did she pick that up from? Most likely him. Could it be that the reason why Samantha and Thomas Jr. didn't overstep or overspeak over Thomas Sr. is because Thomas Sr. is normally used to being the center? What do you guys think? You think the behavior panel got it right? You think that they should revisit having some of this information to chew over? Anyhow, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Please definitely like and share this video. And as always, I will be back soon with more content. But until then, please be safe, and I will talk to you later. Bye.
You're such a fraud.